is Sunday, September 15th. It's the opening day of deer season in Missouri. It kicks off a 4-month long deer season. It will now be open all the way through January 15th in some form. Today's archery season, and it runs clear through this year, November 15th. Firearm season starts on November 16th. So, got a long archery season, early season archery season, and I'm heading over to Scotland County Farm to hunt this morning. It's about 5:15 in the morning. It looks overcast with some thunderstorms. There's a lot of lightning in the sky. They're supposed to push out of here before too long. Though it's 72 degrees, it's hot. The moon is waning full now. It waxed full last night, so it's going to start waning full. Pressure's 30.06. I don't expect to see many deer. It's just warm. It's a morning hunt in September, and I'm sitting on an access trail, so I don't really plan to see many deer. That's not the point of point out today. The point of point out today is just celebrate the occasion, maybe do a little scouting, and just enjoy the start of the season. Just a minute on my strategy for the year. I have quite a few food plots, nice food plots that attract a lot of deer. I don't want to hunt any of those food plots until at least October. Last year, well, for two reasons. Last year I killed a buck on September 28th, and so I was on the bench without a tag through all of October and early November. Oh boy, raccoons. And that was tough, not being able to hunt through October, especially in early November. So I don't want to do that again unless there's a really big deer. Not a really big deer, but if it's your number one shooter deer, then I think you have to pull the trigger no matter what the date is. But so I'm going to try and hunt some of the more marginal spots here in September, and save some of those better spots for October. The second reason is pressure. Hunting pressure on deer really affects them, and the more you hunt the spot, the lower your chances are of shooting your deer. They just can sense that presence in the woods. You know, a lot of times they can just know something's wrong, even if they don't spot you, even if they don't recognize your scent. A lot of times deer just have a sixth sense and can know you're there, and it pressures them just being in the stand a lot of times. And also getting in and out of food plots is a real problem. You can't hunt food plots in the morning. They're usually out there grazing, you bump them off. And then in the evening you have the same problem though, but just getting out of the stand. So you sit, on a food plot, and then the deer are on it. When it's dark, you got to get out, you run them off, and that really pressures them, and that pressure really affects their behavior. They start to associate that location with danger, is what happens, and so they just start avoiding it because they don't feel safe in the area with that hunting pressure. So I'm a big believer in managing your hunting pressure. So to do that in the archery season, I think that means saving your food plots for those really key dates where you're likely to have bucks on their feet. And a lot of people try and predict deer movement based on temperature, the moon, barometric pressure, all of those weather influencers. I think those are important. I think they obviously do affect deer movement. And I pay attention to all of those weather factors, but I think the number one influencer of deer movement and buck movement, in my opinion, is just the date on the calendar, the length of daylight in the day. I think that's what drives deer behavior. So in the early season in September, you don't see a lot of buck movement from those more mature bucks. They're moving at night. night. They're feeding at night. They're not moving much during the day. It's just too hot. Their testosterone is still building. They're not really on the move and feeling excited and sprightly yet. Now, when you get to October 8, 9, and 10, I think that's the first key dates where those bucks start changing behavior and start preparing for the rut. The testosterone is building in them, and I think at that point it's built a little bit higher. They start to feel a little bit better. They start to feel like being a little more active. And for whatever reason, those dates, October 8, 9, and 10, I feel are the first dates where your chances of seeing bucks on their feet, the more mature bucks on their feet, goes up. And then the second range of dates is October 26th through the 30th. I like those dates. 3 years ago, I killed a buck on October 26th. Last year, Josh and I killed a buck on October 26th. I think during that period, 26th through the 30th, the buck's testosterone has built all the way to a peak level. They are ready for the rut, and they are up and they're moving. But the does are not. There are no does that are in during that period. So the does are still on the food sources. And those bucks, thinking the rut is about to start, are up on their feet, they're cruising, and they're heading to those food sources because that's where the deer are. And I think after a few days they figure out the does are not receptive yet, and then I think it dies down a little bit again until about November 5th. So with those does not being in estrus during the 26th to the 30th, they're still on food, and the bucks are on their feet in daylight going to those food sources. Now, of course, deer don't know what day it is. They don't have a calendar and check off October 9th on the calendar or October 13th on the calendar. But there are environmental changes that go on in their habitat where they live, and also biological changes in their bodies that take place based on the length of daylight in the day. As these days get shorter, of course, the habitat changes, the food sources change, the beans defoliate, lose their green leaves, the corn gets cut, the beans get cut, the grass stops growing. Those all affect their food sources and how they behave. And also, testosterone keeps building in those bucks as the days get shorter. So, to me, that's the number one influencer of deer movement, of buck movement, and that is the length of daylight during those days. And it just seems like during that October 8, 9, and 10, and October 26th through the 30th, those are a couple of markers in the change from summer to fall, where it affects their behavior and they behave a little differently. So that's my take on deer movement and when you need to be out and stand during the early archery season in Missouri. So I'm going to try and restrict my hunting to access trails in and out up until that October 8, 9, and 10 range, and then I'll start getting into my box blinds, sitting on the food plots, and taking some more chances with my hunting pressure, because at that point during those dates it's worth it. So as I said, it's a little after 5 in the morning. My opinion on morning hunts during the early archery season is you shouldn't do it. It pressures the deer. Usually deer are on their feet. This time of year, feeding between 5 and 6, it's probably the coolest part of the day, and so they're often getting in your stand, you just run them out. So it's really bad pressure-wise to hunt in mornings this time of year. So I'm doing it today just because it is the opening day of the season. I will not hunt another morning probably until November 5th, somewhere in that range. So, and that's also why I'm going to the Scotland County farm. That farm is the place where I'm going to be hunting primarily during the rifle season, and so I figured a little pressure in September isn't the worst thing in the world. Right now it's just too hot to hunt in the evenings. I think the high today is 88 or 89, so that means obviously I'm not going to be in a stand today. So if I wanted to hunt today, I had to be in the morning. But otherwise, I would not be hunting in the morning. And Mizzou played last night, so I had to go to Columbia. Left about 1:30. Went down there and tailgated. Luckily, we were playing Southeast Missouri State, and it was 27-0 in the first quarter. So I got out of there early, but I still got back late. I didn't sleep a whole lot. So that's one good thing about the early archery season. You don't have to get up early. I'm about halfway to Memphis. I'll be there before long. If it's raining, having said all that, if I get there and it's raining, I might have no choice but to sit on a ground blind on a clover plot, because my access trails are open air stands. You know, they're tree stands, and I'll get soaked, and I'm not going to do that. So I may have to break my rule just this morning to stay dry, which is okay. This is the Scotland County farm, and I don't plan to hunt this farm really until the firearm season in November. So a little pressure September 15th won't be a big deal. But if it's not raining, I'm going to hunt an access travel corridor trail in a tree stand. So hopefully we at least see a deer or two. Day one is a thunderstorm. I got soaked walking in. It's just pouring rain. So I did have to come to the ground blind on the food plot, but it's a good way to start the season. The rain continues. Well, there's the end of day one, or the first morning. Pretty unproductive. Thunderstorm basically the whole time, and no deer showed up, but at least I got out on opening morning.